काज़ियाने से वो खून रोके ये कहता रहा ज़माने से कि ये है शिम्र ने कि ये है शिम्र ने दो कत्ल एक खंजर से कि ये है शिम्र ने दो कत्ल एक खंजर से लहू हुसैन का पहुंचा लहू हुसैन का पहुंचा बहन की चादर से लहू हुसैन का पहुंचा बहन की चादर से और गरीब ज़हरा गरीब ज़हरा वहीं रोते रोते मर जाता गरीब ज़हरा वहीं रोते रोते मर जाता बहन उठा के ना लाती बहन उठा के ना लाती जो लाश अकबर से बहन उठा के ना लाती जो लाश अकबर से या ज़हरा किसी ने बालों से किसी ने बालों से पकड़ा कोई उठा के चला किसी ने बालों से पकड़ा कोई उठा के चला सरे हुसैन को मारा सरे हुसैन को मारा किसी ने पत्थर से सरे हुसैन को मारा किसी ने पत्थर से।
से।
हुसैन पे लबे हुसैन पे हंसे हंस के मारता था छड़ी लबे हुसैन पे हंसे हंस के मारता था छड़ी यजीद खेल रहा था यजीद खेल रहा था हुसैन के सर से यजीद खेल रहा था हुसैन के सर से किए हैं शिम्र ने صل على محمد وآل محمد
السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة
Be at ease, O servant of mine. I am your Mawla al-Hussein. I am the stranger of Karbala, and you are a stranger in these moments. Whoever visits my resting place, I visit theirs, and if they were put in hellfire, my intercession would spare. Did you not visit me after every salah? Did you not cry for me? Did you not call out, Labbayka ya Hussein? You have a right upon me, O my servant, and here is where you will take it, so do not be scared. O Allah, I beseech you in the name of my mother Fatima and her broken ribs.
Let the light of Ziyarat Ashura bring tranquility to the graves of your deceased. By contributing to Husseini message, a recitation of Ziyarat Ashura will be in the name of your loved ones. Let their names be mentioned by the grave of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Final time.
Hello? Assalamu alaikum, Zainab. Yeah, I'm just leaving the hospital right now. Yeah, our dad is not doing so good. The doctor said that, yeah, it's the same thing, but it's gotten worse, and honestly, the only thing we can do right now is pray. All right, I'll see you soon. Myself.
Thank you, dear brother Ahmed Al-Wardi. And again, if you want to get any more information, you can of the venue. Inshallah, just before we invite the Sheikh onto the minbar, I've just been asked if I can make some extra space, especially in the with the gents. If you can all come forward a little bit, just so we can make some extra space at the back for those who come in a little bit late. And likewise for the sisters, if there is any space that you can make, especially towards the back, if you can come forward a little bit, then it would be much appreciated. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As always, I would like to thank the mu'mineen and mu'minat, the attendees here, especially for those who have joined us throughout our Muharram program over the last 10 nights, 10 nights of Muharram. And for those who have supported us, whether that be financially, through their services, for their khidmah, we thank you all. And inshallah, you can support the foundation. I think there's a short amount left for us to raise to clear the remaining debts on the building of the loan. So if you help in any way, I'm sure there's volunteers outside that can give you more details if you are interested. And if you can support the foundation, continue to support the foundation, it would be much appreciated. Jazakallah khair. So without further ado, inshallah, I'd like to invite our dear friend and scholar, Sheikh Abbas Panju, to the minbar. And if you can all invite him with the loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. الثانية على حب الزهراء. والثالثة على حب الحسن والحسين.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق العين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وعلى منكري فضائلهم من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين آمين رب العالمين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. يا غريب الغرباء يا مظلوم كربلاء السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته. السلام على من الإجابة تحت قبته. السلام على ساكن كربلاء. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا وكنا معكم سادتي. يا سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. صدق النبي وآمنا به. نوروا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد. أحبائي, you find that Karbala is that sacrifice, that revolution that is unparalleled since the time of the creation. And until Yawmul Qiyamah, there shall never be a second revolution equal to its magnitude like Karbala. Truth in its entirety, purity in its entirety is embedded Imam Hussein and his companions. And on the other hand, you find the embodiment of falsehood and impurity embedded within the army of Yazid al-La'in and those that decided to fight under Yazid and those who decided to remain neutral in the issue of Ashura. And you find that in addition to this, Karbala is that movement, that powerful movement, shakes the very essence of any truthing seeker. Any person with a conscience who is looking proximity towards that one creator. Any person who is looking to find the purpose of their creation. You find that Karbala is that grand event that shakes their core and creates this gravity through which you yearn towards Haqq by shares for Imam al-Hussein. the extent that the more you drown yourselves in the grief of Imam al-Hussein, the higher you climb on this ladder of spiritual perfection. And you find this reality embedded within the prophetic narration. This hadith which is narrated by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, when he describes his journey of Mi'raj. And he says that I saw that it was inscribed on the foundation of the Arsh, Inna al-Hussein misbah al-Huda. Indeed, Imam al-Hussein is the lantern of guidance, wa safinatun najat, and is the ark of salvation. Matamis, contemplate over these words of Rasulullah. I saw that it was engraved on the arsh of Allah that Imam al-Hussein is the lantern of guidance and the ark of salvation. Why did Allah Azza wa Jal inscribe this slogan and this statement on the foundation of the arsh? He could have put this to be on the doors of the heavens. He could have etched this onto the earth and the skies. Yet Allah particularly chose that it will be engraved on the foundation of the arsh. Why? The arsh of Allah, the throne of Allah, has a number of interpretations. One agreed upon interpretation is that the arsh is a representation of the dominion and the grandeur and the power of Allah. If this is the case, then the foundation upon which the grandeur of the Lord of the universe is built upon is the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein. Ya Ali. And if this reality is edged in the very concept of Tawheed, know that so long as there is La ilaha illallah, the nida labbaik ya Hussein shall continue. This cannot be separated. From Alam al-Malakut, Imam al-Hussein's name cannot be separated from Tawheed. It is etched onto the Arsh. And you find that this reality, year upon year, generation after generation, mankind seeks salvation by knocking at the door of Imam al-Hussein. As soon as the months of Shahr Muharram open, the tears flow, we receive the guidance and we ascend in spirituality. If we understand that Karbala is this ultimate symbol of guidance, you will also realize, on the other hand, that the enemies very well understood this reality. And Bani Umayyah spared no effort to maximum effort to try and distort the message of Imam al-Hussein and to distort the reality of Karbala. If you were to read of history, you find that from the very first days, when Imam Sajjad and Sayyida Zainab and the rest of the Sabaya were brought into the city of Kufa, and Ibn Ziyad was interrogating the holy Ahlul Bayt, he looked at Imam Sajjad and he says to him, "Who are you?" Imam Sajjad replies by saying, "I am Ali ibn Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad al-La'in." His response was, "Did Allah not kill Ali in Karbala?" Yani, he was referring to Ali al-Akbar. Imam Sajjad then said, "I had another brother by the name of Ali." But the point over here is the narrative that was being pushed by the likes of Ibn Ziyad, that it was Allah who killed Imam al-Hussein progeny. On the other hand, you have a narrative that is being pushed by Sham, that because apparent victory was given to us and kingdom is within our possession, it means that Allah is pleased with us. And because Hussein was killed on the plains of Karbala, that means that God was against him. The narrative that Bani Umayyah was pushing out is that the grandchildren of Rasulullah revolted against the very religion of their grandfather. And had it not been, number one, the role of the women and the children after Ashura, imprisonment from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham, Matamis. Till today, the books of history would write for us that Imam al-Hussein revolted against the Khalif of the time, revolted against the grandfather of his religion, and ultimately paid the price. The distortion of what happened in Karbala. And Bani Umayyah did not stop. After them came Bani Abbas. And they distorted the events of Karbala in different ways. Until today, the Nawasib try and distort the reality of what happened in Karbala. And on the other hand, they try and omit the dhikr of Karbala altogether. How many years during the time of contemporary Saddam was the walk of Arba'in prohibited? How many lives were given such that people could walk and get a glimpse at the Qubba of Imam al-Hussein? They suppressed the walk, they suppressed the azah of Imam al-Hussein. And as soon as this la'een was sent to Jahannam wa bi'sa al-masir, you find the explosion in terms of the ziyarat al-arba'in in front of your own eyes. The nature of the commemoration of Imam al-Hussein is that it cannot be suppressed. For we understand that the enemies of Ali Muhammad exerted utmost efforts to distort and to hide the reality of what happened in Ashura, keeping in mind that it is a powerful catalyst for change and to seek hidayah. So obviously they will target. On the other hand, you will find that Ahlul Bayt, from the time of Imam Sajjad, all the way until Maulana Sahibul Amri wa Zaman, Ruhi Lahul Fida, each and every one of the Imams implemented strategic measures to ensure that the dhikr of Karbala is not distorted. In other words, each Imam implemented certain strategic measures to make sure that the message of Karbala and the details of how Imam al-Hussein was martyred are safeguarded and preserved, such that be a source of guidance for future generations to come until the dhuhur of the Imam. And one of those benefactors are you and I today, 1400 years later. How? One, you will find from these strategic measures that Imam particular and Imam al-Baqir took in preserving the details of what happened. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli samahtu Sheikh. Faddalu. Muhammad. The measures that Imam al-Sajjad and Imam al-Baqir took, strategic measures, which was an important aspect or a function of this divine imamate, was to protect and preserve not only the message of Karbala, but tells of how Imam al-Hussein and his companions were martyred on the day of Ashura. From these measures, Ahibba'i, Imam al-Sajjad oversaw the completion of the Maktal of Imam al-Hussein through his companion Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi. Imam al-Sajjad and Imam al-Baqir commanded this one companion by Yazid, Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi, to write the entire account of what happened on the day of Ashura, the Maktal of Imam al-Hussein. If you were to speak to a number of experts within this field, within the Hawza Ilmiya in Najaf al-Ashraf, they would tell you that according to us, from what is known, because no historian can make a blank statement when it comes to encompassing history in its entirety, as we will see towards the end of the lecture. They say that from the literature that we have received, the Maktal of Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi is the Saktal to be authored upon the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. The first person to author the Maktal was the companion of Amirul Mu'mineen by the name of Asbagh ibn Nabata. Asbagh ibn Nabata died in 100 AH. The companion of Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan, was not able to participate in Karbala for reasons that we can discuss in a different lecture. But he was the first person in this last year. So I will not repeat, but to give you context, the first person to record the Maktal upon the martyrdom of Imam. And this Maktal included narrations from Imam Sajjad, from Imam al-Baqir, and the eyewitnesses that were present in Karbala. After Asbagh ibn Nabata, you find the second person who took this initiative to record the Maktal, the events of the killing of Imam al-Hussein in the form of a book, Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi. For the purpose of tonight's majlis, we would like to explore a number of points in regards to Jabir. Number one, who was Jabir bin Yazid al-Ju'fi? Number two, what is the different opinions of the ulama of Rijal when it comes to the credibility of Jabir al-Ju'fi? Number three, what were the writings that he had contributed to as an author during early Islam? Number four, the Maktal that he wrote. What happened to this Maktal? Is it still available till today or no? And number five, which other historians depended on the Maktal of Jabir as a resource which they then referred on to, wrote and passed on for generations after them? The idea is through this, Ahibba'i, we will then dispel a number of misconceptions in regards to how we got the details or where details of the Maktal of Imam al-Hussein are received from. And inshallah, this with the loud barakat of a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Jabir ibn al-Ju'fi, Ahibba'i, ulama of Rijal, you will find Sheikh al-Abtahi mentions that he was from the companions of Imam al-Sajjad, Imam al-Baqir, and Imam al-Sadiq. Jabir al-Ju'fi then passed away in 148 AH. Conclusion number one. Matamiz, Shabab, the Maktal of Imam al-Hussein was authored as early as 148 AH. For claims that are made that the Maktal was not in a written form and this was all compiled during the Safavid period, and before the Safavid period there was no clear compilation or understanding of what happened on the day of Ashura, are inaccurate claims. It is academic fraud for any Maulvi Sahib to sit on the mimbar and to create doubt in regards to when the history of the Maktal was recorded and compiled in a written form. One, Jabir died in 148 AH. Ulama, let me read you passages of what the ulama say in regards to the credibility and the status of Jabir. And this will give you an understanding of the caliber of the people who took it upon themselves or given the task by the Ma'soom Imam to compile a Maktal. You notice how the Masa'ib of Imam al-Hussein has reached us till this day and age. In regards to his credential, Sheikh al-Mufid, in his text Risalat al-Adida, describes Jabir by saying, وهو من الفقهاء والأعلام الرؤساء المأخوذ عنهم الحلال والحرام والفتية والأحكام. Sheikh Mufid describes Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi, the author of the Maktal of Imam al-Hussein during the time of Imam Sajjad and Imam al-Baqir, as being an alim who was a faqih, the equivalent of a marja taqid, the way we say today. And from him, from the likes of Jabir, fatwa in regards to halal and haram are taken and accepted and understood. وَمِنْ أَصْحَابِ الْأُصُولِ الْمُدَوَّنَةِ وَالْمُصَنَّفَاتِ الْمَشْهُورَةِ, that He is from amongst those companions who had compiled writings and literatures that then went up to make this encyclopedia known as the Usul Arbamiyya, 400 texts that were authored by companions of the Imams from the time, some people say from the time of Imam Sajjad till the time of Imam Al-Hadi. Some ulama of the opinion from the time of Amirul Mu'mineen all the way to Imam Al-Hadi. And there are texts greater than 400. We will go with what is the minimum. He was from amongst those who contributed to this great encyclopedia of Shia literature in regards to halal and haram. Recording, writing, hadith in the school of Ahlul Bayt did not begin after a ban that was imposed by the Khulafa of Saqifa. Amirul Mu'mineen had a number of his own companions who were writing history when it was banned by the time of the Khulafa, one of them being Sulaim bin Qais al-Hilali. There is a lot of kalam in regards to Sulaim bin Qais. Inshallah, if Allah Azza wa Jal gives us a chance during Fatimiyya, we will discuss that. Moreover, Shaykh al-Mufid in his book Al-Ikhtisas, a hadith that Mufaddal ibn Umar was a companion of Imam Sadiq. Some of you may have read or may be familiar with the book Kitab al-Tawheed by Shaykh Mufaddal ibn Umar, where he talks about, he dictates, Imam Sadiq is dictating and Mufaddal is writing. I believe the book is available in English, is translated as well, about Tawheed. And you see the vast, never-ending wisdom of Rabbil Alameen within nation. Mufaddal ibn Umar asks Imam Sadiq in regards to Jabir. How is Jabir? Because as you know, Jabir was a servant of Imam al-Baqir for 18 years. Studied under him for a period of 18 years. The way Shaykh al-Mamkani mentions in Tankih al-Makal. So Mufaddal asks Imam Sadiq, what is your opinion of Jabir? Imam Sadiq replies back by saying, he is the equivalent manzilatu Salman min Rasulullah. How was Salman to Rasulullah? In that same way, that relationship is between me and Jabir. What did Rasulullah say in regards to Salman? Salman minna ahl al-bayt. This is tazkiyah for Jabir. Jabir minna ahl al-bayt. In regards to the credibility, look at the caliber of the people who were tasked with writing and authoring the Maktal of Imam Hussein. This is what we are trying to get to. You find within the books of Rijal, Sheikh al-Najashi discredits Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi in the sense that he says, كان في نفسه مختلط, that Jabir was a person, مختلطا means one of two things. He was a person who confused up the hadith. Mixed hadith that was correct with hadith that was not correct. Mukhtalitan also means that he was not mentally sound. One of two things could be deduced from the words of Shaykh al-Najashi. Where do these claims emanate from? Number one, mukhtalit, mixing hadith that is accurate with hadith that is non-accurate. You find that a lot of the people during the time of Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi had a hard time digesting hadith in regards to the fada'il of Al Muhammad. And because they were not able to digest the reality of the fada'il, they would blame and they would accuse Jabir of ghulu. And at the forefront of this were the likes of the Awam, the likes of Abu Hanifa. In fact, Abu Hanifa had very limited access of Rasulullah, which is why he was forced to revert to strategies such as qiyas and istihsan, because they did not have access to the hadith of Rasulullah at that time. And Jabir, on the other hand, Shaykh al-Mufid narrates in his writing, Jabir himself says, I learned 70,000 hadith from Imam al-Baqir. From a person who is struggling to understand hadith like Abu Hanifa, dependent on qiyas and istihsan. Of course there's going to be hasasiyat. And you find this even in this day and age. Ahibai, these things are not difficult to understand. Even in this day and age, when the Fadha of Ali Muhammad is recited from the mimbar, person difficulty digesting the grandeur within the maqam that is given to an imam by Allah. They have difficulty digesting. Straight away they say, what, this is ghulu, this is shirk. Fulan can't digest the fact that tawassul is from the fundamental aspects of tawheed. Because his akal can't digest this ghulu. Sahih la, lo, I live in a different world. We see this. This is not something that is exclusive to our day and age. Matam is, this is something that was happening during the time when Jabir ibn Yazid would sit in Masjid al-Kufa. He would say, سمعت سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد ibn Ali al-Baqir يقول. Jabir would begin his hadith by saying, I heard from the Sayyid, the master of the Awsiya, from the beginning of time till the end of time. Just this one fadila of Imam al-Baqir. They would come out of Masjid al-Kufa in the middle of his hadith and they would say, Jannah Jabir. Refer. MashaAllah. Yeah, they would say Jannah Jafir, inshallah, to honor the Nara Junoon in the way of Ahlul Bayt, inshallah, is commendable. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this is number one. Number two, Rijal al-Kishi. Sheikh al-Kishi, who is one of these formidable that the Usuli ulama depend on when it comes to understanding the authenticity and the credibility of narrators. Sheikh al-Kishi mentions that Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi was commanded by Baqir to pretend that he is mentally unstable in order to protect his life, and by adapting a stance or a state of mental instability, he was able to protect his life and spread the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. In the same way as Bahlul. Bahlul was not the first person to be subject to this sort of behavior. Before him was Jabir. Rijal al-Kishi points towards this, where there is a narration by Nu'man ibn Bashir. He says, we came out from Hajj and I was a companion with Jabir on the way to Medina, and we visited Imam al-Baqir as we were returning to Kufa. At a certain part of our journey, a person came with a letter to Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi. The letter was sealed. He said to Jabir, this is a letter from your master, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. Jabir ibn Yazid looked at the letter, put it on his forehead, kissed it, read the letter. Yazid was a person, Jabir ibn Yazid was a person, his personality, he was a very talkative person. 70,000 hadith ba'ad. And so they would discuss ilm with his companions. As soon as he read the letter, Jabir's complexion changed. And he went silent. Nu'man ibn Bashir, his companion, says, from that moment onwards, I never heard Jabir speak a single word in the journey. When we reached into Kufa, Jabir went into his house because he was a citizen of Kufa, disappeared in his house for a couple of hours. He says, I was worried. What was the content of the letter? I waited outside his house. Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi comes out of his house holding a broomstick, but it is a horse, acting like he's mentally unstable. There was a command that had come from the ruling party of the Khalif of that time, that there is an execution order that has been issued. Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi, this companion of Imam is to be arrested and to be executed. When the governor of Kufa saw the execution, he sent back a letter to the Khalif saying, you want me to publicly execute a mentally unstable person? And so they left Jabir. People had to adapt and go through this extent in order for the ilm and the knowledge of Ali Muhammad to reach you and I, Ahibai. From the writings of Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi, to the Rijal, if you go back to the writings in the Rijal of Sheikh Tusi and Najashi, you will find that Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi was an author who had written a tafsir of the Quran based on Imam al-Sajjad and Imam al-Baqir. He had compiled a book in regards to the history of Jamal. He had compiled a book in regards to the history of the Battle of Siffin. He had written and compiled a book in regards to the Battle of Nahrawan. He had written and compiled a book that was entitled the Maktal of Amirul Mu'mineen. Meaning that by 100 AH, at the time of Imam al-Baqir, there was a compiled book that talked in detail of how Amirul Mu'mineen was made on the 19th of Shahrul Muharram and eventually struck on the 19th and Shaheed on the 21st. So now all these useless claims from the member that come and say Makatil and details of the Maktal were fabricated during the time of the Safavids. Mujiba Kulliya, to make a blanket sweeping statement like this is an academic failure, Ahibai. Aib. To the Maktal of Amirul Mu'mineen, Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi had authored the of Imam al-Hussein. This Maktal was then present all the way, because he died in about 148 AH. This Maktal, written Maktal of Imam al-Hussein was available and present. If you go back to the chain of narrators, you will be able to establish and deduce that a copy of this Maktal was, one of these copies was present in Basra, one of these copies was present in Baghdad, and this Maktal was present and available all the way up to the time of Sheikh Najashi. Sheikh Najashi even looked and saw the Maktal, and he traces the entire sanad of how he received this Maktal back to its author. 458 AH, 450 AH, when Baghdad was attacked by the Sajalika, you find that the entire library in Baghdad was destroyed. From amongst the manuscripts that was destroyed was the Maktal of Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi. Allahu Akbar. Tamam. Ya Ali. Ya Ali. Beshmar. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajjal faraja. For you find over here that the Maktal existed till about 450 AH and then it was destroyed. A conclusion that from here, Matamis, you know, the Maktal of Asbagh ibn Atta was also destroyed during the time of Sheikh Tusi. From here you are able to take a conclusion that what has reached us, the Maktal of Imam al-Hussein, is probably a tiny percentage of what was already authored. There was a Maktal that was even authored by Sheikh al-Saduq, an entire book in regards to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. That entire book was then destroyed through the passages of time. One Maktal of Sheikh Saduq was what? The famous hadith of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, that he was so tall such that when he would sit on the horse, even though he would sit on the horse, his legs would touch the ground. The stirrups placed on the side of the horse were very close to the earth, close to the ground. This hadith came from where? It came from the Maktal al-Abbas that was authored by Sheikh Saduq. For in reality, from an academic perspective, if you were to look at the issue and the details of the Maktal and what we have in our literature today, from the day of Ashura is a very tiny percentage of what was actually written during that time. Sometimes, ajib, even in this small percentage, people have ishkal. The Maktal got destroyed. However, that there are remnants, examples of what this Maktal of Jabir bin Yazid al-Ju'fi looked like and the type of content that that Maktal had. Because other scholars who were around 300 AH, 400 AH, they ended up writing Maktals, which we take today as primary sources, but in reality they were secondary sources at their time because they were referring to other primary sources. You have Makatil that are present till today. Makatil, plural of the word Maktal. Makatil that are present till today, where you find the authors are dependent upon the writings of Jabir bin Yazid al-Ju'fi. Shufu, I'll read for you a couple of examples and we go into Masa'ib. From the Maktal of Jabir bin Yazid al-Ju'fi, people that have referenced this Maktal, Ahibai, you have Abul Faraj al-Isfahani. Abul Faraj al-Isfahani is the author of the Maktal that is known as Makatil al-Talibiyin. He passed away in 356 AH, and I believe Makatil al-Talibiyin is also translated into English. Abul Faraj al-Isfahani, when he authored this Maktal, 356 AH, he died. Where did he get the permission to author this Maktal? He depended on al-Ju'fi. Look at the type of the hadith that he narrates. He says, An Abi Ja'far. So, An Yazid ibn, An Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi, An Abi Ja'far. Meaning what? Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi is narrating from Imam al-Baqir. Ahibba'i Matamis, we are people of tafakkur and tadabbur, meaning that Imam al-Baqir played a great role in narrating the details of the Maktal on the day of Ashura. How old was Imam al-Baqir when he was in Karbala? 4 years. The ilm of a Ma'soom Imam at the age of 4 and the attention of detail for a Ma'soom Imam at the age of 4 is not like any other human being. La yuqas bina Ahlul Bayt. No human, no creation can be compared to Ahlul Bayt. Shufu, Imam al-Baqir says what? Anna Zayd ibn Ruqad wa Hakim ibn Tufail qatala al-Abbas ibn Ali. Two people, Zayd ibn Ruqad and Hakim ibn Tufail, were responsible for killing Abul Fadl al-Abbas. When you go back to the Makatil, you will find these two names through which we are able to deduce a new conclusion. As per the experts within this field who have mentioned, both these individuals, Zayd ibn Ruqad and Hakim ibn Tufail, were responsible for severing the arm of al-Abbas. One of them cut the right hand, the other one cut the left hand. But you find over here, Imam al-Baqir says, qatala, meaning that they were directly responsible for killing Abul Fadl al-Abbas, which is why specialists within the Makatil, at least in Najaf, when they come forward, look at these hadith, they come and tell you that the role of Zayd ibn Ruqad and Tufail, Hakim ibn Tufail, not only did they sever the arms, after that they went and they attacked Abul Fadl again. And it was the final strikes of these two men that was the ultimate cause of shahada. Shufu, Ma'soom Imam says, Riwayatun tadri khayrun min alfin tarwih. Real fiqh is in the contemplation, is in contemplating in the depths of the words, depth of the meanings that are contained within the Ahlul Bayt. Shufu, another detail. He mentions over here in regards to what happened to Imam al-Hussein. So the first who referenced the Maktal of Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi is Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahan Maqatil al-Talibiyin. The second person who depended on this Maktal is Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, very well-known historian. I believe 350 AH, maybe he passed away, give or take. In his writing, Tarikh al-Umam wal-Muluk, look at the detail that existed in the Maqatil of the early days. Somebody comes and tells you that these type of details are fabricated and they've been added by the reciter. Sure. In the regards to Hasin ibn Tamim, what to Imam al-Hussein? فَرَمَاهُ بِسَحْمٍ فَوَقَعَ فِي فَمِهِ. He struck Imam al-Hussein, Hasin ibn Tamim, struck Imam al-Hussein with an arrow in the mouth. Matamis, can you envision this in your mind? Forgive me for saying this in terms of being explicit. Do you know what happens when you are struck with an arrow in the mouth? This sort of weaponry is not used to target the face of a human being. That happens if a person is struck with an arrow in the mouth is that it disfigures everything underneath the nose. Imam al-Hussein's face was not intact when he was shaheed. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. He goes on to say, فَجَعَلَ يُلْقِيَ الدَّمْ or يَلْقِيَ الدَّمْ مِنْ فَمِهِ وَيَرْمِي بِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Imam al-Hussein would take the blood that was gushing out from a disfigured face in the mouth, and he would keep throwing it up to the heavens. I want to say one thing while our tears are rolling and masa'ib. Ahibai, just because a person has not heard the details of a Maktal before, and that something, according to him, something new is recited, doesn't mean that it is fabricated. What has reached us is minimalistic. Imam al-Hussein in this stage, do you know what they did to the body of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas? Allahu Akbar. Allah. I want to recite for you tonight Maktal, 4 parts. Maktal of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, from which you see the madhlumiyat of Abu al-Fadl. Allahu Akbar. Matamis. Sayyida Zainab thought about Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas the entire way from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. The historians narrate that when the children entered into Sham, the flag, the alam of Abu al-Fadl was presented to Yazid al-La'in. Yazid was looking at the alam and he showed that the entire flag was torn. It was covered with blood stains. It was torn due to strikes from the sword. It was ripped apart because of the arrows. It was ripped apart because of the spears. The entire flag of Abu al-Fadl was shredded, covered in blood. But the pole of the alam was intact. So Yazid looked at this and he said, this is surprising. He says, how is it that the cloth of the flag is covered in blood and damaged, but all of the flag, that which you hold the flag, the alam with, is still safe? The people, the army, they say to Yazid, it is because the holder of this flag was Abbas ibn Ali. And no matter how much we attacked him, he would hold to the sword and he would hold on to the alam and he would not let this alam fall. He said, then how did you get the alam? He said, it is only when we severed the hands of Abul Fadl. Allah, Allah. Do you know when the two arms of Abul Fadl al-Abbas were severed, the army of Yazid was too cowardly to come close. So the Maktal narrates that Umar ibn Sa'ad said, shower arrows upon Fadl from every direction. From the hundreds of arrows that hit Abul Fadl, Matamis, I want to explain to you only two of these arrows. The first arrow was the one that pierced the water bag and the mashk. Allah! As the water was dripping down onto the plains of Karbala, the hopes of Abul Fadl. He looks at the mashk. He sees the water is dripping. He says, how do I go back to the Khaybaga? How will I face Sakina? And back to the Furat to fill the water. How do I fill water? I have no arms. Allah. As Abul Fadl is in this state, a second arrow comes. Maktal narrates, Matamis, the arrow pierced the eye of Abul Fadl. Allah. Blood is flowing down the face. He doesn't have any arms. If there is a speck of dirt in your eye, you will be restless until you remove it. Abul Fadl had an arrow. Allah, Matamis, Maktal narrates, he doesn't have any arms. So he tried to arrow. Our elders in the house say that Abul Fadl lifted his two knees together. He put the arrow in the middle, and as he tried to unplug the arrow, an enemy came from the ranks. He struck him with the tent pole on the head. Allahu Akbar. When a person falls, they break the fall using their hands. When Abul Fadl fell on the plains of Karbala, he fell face first. Do you know what some of the khutaba say? That when he fell face first, the arrow that was launched in the eye got pushed even deeper. Ya Kamar Bani Hashim, Abul Fadl, in the most painful of voices, he cries out, Alayka minni salam, Ya Aba Abdullah. Imam Hussein goes running out of Imaga. Hamid ibn Muslim says that as Imam Hussein, Matamis, it is as if your hearts are in Karbala just now. And from the Khaymaga with your heart, you are running to the Haram of Abul Fadl. Imam was running to the call of Abul Fadl. Hamid bin Muslim says, I saw him every few steps Hussein would run, he would fall down on the ground. He would stand up, he would run again, he would fall down. He says, I went closer. At one moment, Hussein put his hand on his back and he said, Al-Ad inkasara dhahri. Now my back is broken. I don't know how Imam Zain reached Abul Fadl. This third part of his Maktal, Imam Hussein sees him in this state without any two arms, with an arrow in the eye. The skull was split open by the tent pole. I read in the Maktal, it said, فَكَانَ يَتَمَرَّقْ فِي دَمِهِ. Imam al-Abbas was turning around in his face in his own blood. Imam al-Hussein takes the head of Abul Fadl and he puts it on his lap. A conversation takes place. After a few moments, Abul Fadl takes his head off the lap onto the sands. Imam al-Hussein puts it back. 3 times this happened. 3 times Abul Fadl removes his head. Imam Hussein says, my brother Abbas, why do you take your head off my Abul Fadil? In a very faint voice says to him, my master, in my final moments, my head is in your lap, but I am thinking in your final moments, who is going to be around you? It is as if you were surrounded by the enemy's shimmer marching towards you, and from the Khaymaga, Zainab is shouting, Ya Adu Allah, Allah, Allah. Ya Abul Fadl, Ya Abul Fadl, 13th of Muharram. This is the final part of the Masa'ib Abul Fadil. Imam Sajjad miraculously comes out of prison. From Kufa to Karbala. He buried the Shuhada. And the people from Bani Asad helped him. He dug 2 big masks. One he put in the Sadat, the Shabab, the youth of Bani Hashim. And in the other he put the remaining companions. And then Habib ibn Madahir was buried separately. Imam al-Hussein, Imam Sajjad then went and buried Imam al-Hussein. In which way Allah knows, but the Maktal states that when Imam al-Sajjad buried Imam al-Hussein and he covered the grave with sand, with his finger, Imam al-Sajjad wrote on the grave. Have you seen when a person from our family members die and we bury them and we cover the grave with sand, we put water on it, we put roses on it, we put some sort of marking? Mazloom Imam Sajjad with his finger, he wrote on the sand, Hada Qabrul.
بسم الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير